What's going on, everybody? My name is Samir Azizi, and you're tuning in to Azizi Podcast. My guest today is Sabine MacDonald. Hi, Sabine. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We've gone through a little bit of troubleshooting and technical difficulties, but we finally got here, and I'm super excited to talk to you.
Me too.
So I'll tell a little bit of a background to our audience. I've met you several months before. It was at one of the conferences here in Toronto, and we had this amazing conversation. And since then, we kind of stayed in touch, and we did other things as well, as far as the projects goes. And yeah, I felt like it's a great opportunity for me to interview you because you're such a unique person, and you have such a unique story that I feel like my listeners and viewers will benefit from. You have this vast experience, professional experience, and I personally want to learn from you. So when we chatted about that and you sounded enthusiastic about it, I got really excited.
Yeah, I am as well. Thank you so much for those words. They mean a lot to me.
Of course, of course. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit of a background on yourself, and we can start from there.
Yeah, hello everyone listening in. My name is Sabine, and I'm here in Canada since 1.5 years. And I think Samir was so enthusiastic about my life because I traveled quite a lot in my background and lived as well in 7 different countries, working there, establishing new subsidiaries, establishing new companies. And that led me finally to be here on the podcast with you.
And where you're originally from?
I'm actually German. I was born there, raised there, but I already left Germany when I was 17
What
for
was
the
it?
first
Just like me, just like me. I left Kazakhstan at 17 as well. But what was it like to be raised in Germany? Like, what was the life in Germany like?
Oh, that's a good question. Germans are very squared, I would say. They are very planned, they're very organized, everything goes according to a plan. And that's probably why I felt like I cannot put into a box. I need to get out of the box. I need to see more. I wanted to see more and wanted to see what the world has to offer. And that's the reason why I left the first time at the age of 17.
And like when you left, was it like a career choice? Did you go for school? Like what exactly drove you to just leave your country like that at the age of 17?
Yeah, maybe I'm starting when I was 14, actually.
Okay.
That's where the idea actually sparked. I was in Italy with my parents and I was at a beach, and there was one person on the beach who was speaking to everyone in their languages. And I was so impressed by that he could literally turn around, speak to somebody from Kazakhstan, turn around, speak to somebody from Brazil, and turn around, speak to somebody from the UK without even hesitating. And I thought this was fantastic. And I promised myself at one point I can do that. And that led me at the age of 17 to go to the United States and do a high school year.
So you did a high school year in the United States.
Frankly.
What was it like? Was that like a cultural shock for you? I can relate to that because I kind of spent a lot of my young years in the United States, but like it was such a cultural shock for me. Like how it was for you as a European.
Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, at this time in my life, the United States was like the dream for everybody. And it was, yes, it was a shock. I mean, only by the language, you go to a country you don't know, you have just kind of like an imagination, and then you go there and you don't even understand what they're saying. My English was not very good at that time. And for me, it was a cultural shock because the Americans, in a way, they're very enthusiastic, they're very proud, they're very get goers, which I wasn't at that time. I was not somebody who was very self confident about myself. I was not overly happy about it. And I was in a family who kind of like was the get-goer and they can do it and they did it. And I was like drawn into this culture, which was so different to me. And they talked to everybody, they laughed with everybody. That was not me. So I learned a completely different culture.
So you lived in a like in a host family.
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
did.
That was quite an experience. And what state in the United States were you at?
I was in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Wow. That's yeah, that's definitely very American. Maybe like over the top even. And so at that point you realize like wow, this international experience is just something beyond like what I expected and you
Yeah.
decided to sort of continue on that journey.
Yes, I didn't. When I had to go back, I didn't want it to go back, and I said I have to repeat. I just had to repeat. So my dream was always to go to France next.
Hmm.
I actually lied in school, saying I know already French, so I could go into the higher French classes, and that was my dream, going to France, but it all came differently.
How so?
Because I found somebody through my first job. I was working at the time in a big media corporation in Munich, and we had in Hamburg a big international conference. And obviously, I talked to the person who was in charge for France for this company, and he liked the idea that I work for him, but his headquarter was not in Paris, it was in Madrid. And he said, fantastic, you work with me, but you have to come to Madrid. And I turned around and I said, all right, let's go to Madrid. And that's what I did.
Wow, that's a drastic change from France. Like it kind of switched to Spain, and it's just like a different vibe. I feel like it's like more of like a party vibe. I feel like.
Yes, it was. Yes, and I didn't even know Spanish at that time. So it was for
Mhm.
me very, very drastic. But I really wanted to get out. I left my job. Basically, my parents thought I was crazy. I was naive at a certain point as well, but I really, really wanted to do that. So my passion really drove me to do that. And I thought I would stay for half a year, and I stayed 12 years.
Wow, that's crazy. And you said you left your job, so that means you actually got another job right away in Spain, like or.
Yes, yes. With
Mhm.
this person at the
Mhm.
international conference, he hired me,
Mhm.
but at a minimum wage.
So what was the job, if you don't mind me asking?
I was his assistant, doing everything he didn't want it to do, basically.
And what did he do?
He was had an agency, an advertisement agency for one of the biggest media corporation in Germany.
That's so interesting. Like, and the previous job was also, like you said, in the media. Is like media in advertising something that you kind of loved from the beginning, or you kind of fell into that?
I fell into it. I was doing the normal business administration MBA career, and I fell into it. And I stayed for a long time in marketing, but not in the media sector.
Interesting. But like 12 years in Spain, like for a German person, I feel like that changes you. And I was wondering, like, how does it shape you as a person and, maybe as a leader as well, because I'm assuming you kind of moved up in your career while in Spain.
Yeah, you must understand the culture. It's so different, also so different to Canada and Spain. I mean, just imagine Spain. You know, most of the people, when they think of Spain, it's like the nice beaches,
Right.
good food, nice weather. And this is all true. And it is one of the biggest tourist attraction worldwide. However, it is a complete different scenario when you live there. What do I mean with that? Well, first of all, people in Spain most likely don't speak English. So you have to learn the language to actually work there. That was actually easy for me because I found a boyfriend who fantastically got into me having learning Spanish.
Uh-huh.
So that was really fantastic. And work-wise, I mean, for example, lunches are 3 hours most of the time.
That's crazy to me.
I know. And often you also drink wine at the
Wow.
lunches.
And which city in Spain was that? Just so we can all imagine in this.
In Madrid.
Madrid, okay.
I mean, there are nowadays a lot of companies who are not doing it anymore, who are having only 1 hour. But especially in the south, 3 hours, it's normal for them because it's the especially in the summer, the hottest time, and nobody can really work
Right.
at the time. And then as well, dinners. I mean, I'm normally from Germany used to eat at 6 o'clock, but in Spain, the restaurants, for example, they don't start before 10 o'clock. So
Wow.
the whole rhythm, the biological rhythm is totally different. And then as well, Germans are very introverted and they don't tell a lot about themselves at work and not never about their family. But in Spain, this is required. I mean, they want to know you. They want to be your friend. They want to be part of your family. So I was always seen as somebody very distant, as not approachable. So I had to learn to open up. And this was ingrained in me. And it's not easy to change and switch your own personality. But in order to gain trust, in order to be a good leader, I had to adapt. I had to learn to be the friend and be even a part of the family of my colleagues.
Allow me to ask you this though, like in this situation where you feel like there is a little bit of a cultural differences where, you're not opening up, but that's normal for you just because that's the way you were brought up in your culture. Did someone have to tell you like, hey, Sabine, like you kind of look weird, like you're all closed up and like everyone's like weirded out by you. Like we're trying to ask you about questions about, like what we usually talk and you're just not saying it. Or like, did you notice that? Did you, or like, was someone approach you like saying, "Hey, Sabine, you have to change," or like, "Oh wow, like something is not adding up here. I see that they're like this and I'm like that, so I have to like kind of adjust."
Oh, yeah. People told me that. And mostly they told me that in a fun way, or they made jokes about me. And there was always a little truth about it. But also, you have those annual reviews where people would tell me, how I, as my personality, impact my team or impact my colleagues.
Oh
So
wow.
yes, there were a constant reflection of myself and a reflection of others about me that gave me the mirror how I interact with others.
So it's kind of funny. So at one point you said, someone kind of jokingly were referring to that kind of point, but at the same time you say there was like some sort of a review where like your behavior was documented. And I'll be honest with you, when this happens to me and someone tries to tell me like, well, Samir, your style of communication is like we don't like it. You cuss too much or something like that. I'm constant like I'm automatically on defense. Like I don't like when people tell me how to talk, what to say, how my culture should be like I'm a very defensive guy, and that's probably something that I need to work on. But how did you like meet with that? Like was that for you like, "Oh wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for the feedback," or was it a little bit confusing for you?
I can totally relate to you. And I would say in my younger ages, I was the same. I was very offensive about it. But I learned that everybody has a different truth. So you can see the same situation totally different than me because we have different backgrounds, different experiences, and that is okay. It is totally okay. And I learned to accept different opinion and I learned to accept the fact that this is okay as well. And it is my choice to either accept it and change it or leave it as it is and let me be as I am.
Okay, and but like yes, it's your choice, but you at the end of the day you did the choice where you gave in, right? You submitted. As in like, okay, I'll do what you guys want. Was that like did you have to overstep yourself and it's like because again, it sounds maybe for some people it sounds easy, But for
Mhm.
me, like as a person who is outside of the culture, had to like it's difficult. Like I understand how difficult it is to like shift, but maybe for some other people it's difficult. It's easy, you know?
It's not easy, and I didn't shift from one day to another. I mean, later in my life, I moved to Brazil, which is very, very similar to Spain. And I thought I had now the Latin culture ingrained. And again, I had the same clashes that the people thought I was too distant to them. So it is not something that you learn and switch from one day to another. And maybe you never switch. Maybe you still have a little bit of German in your blood. And
You're
I
always going to be
have
an
it.
outsider. You're always going to be an outsider. I mean, it's not a
Exactly.
bad thing, but that's just a statement of fact.
Exactly. So I gradually changed a little bit because I love it. I love the Latin culture and being open and social. So I gradually changed and adapted a little bit, but I will never be 100% Latin.
Hmm. And but I think it's what's that's something that makes you unique, and it makes all people who are traveling from another culture, from another country, like that's their kind of uniqueness, and I feel like preserving that is also important, right? Preserving the German culture, preserving like anywhere you're from, like it's you kind of preserve your identity as well with that. But it's Spain 12 years. Do you consider like the beginning of your journey, like the kind of like the trampoline into like the rest of your career?
Yes, I still have the traveler in me because I feel like every 3, 4 years I need to change countries. I lived in Mexico as well, in Russia, now in Canada. I went back to the States once more. I went back to Germany actually as well. So I got around, yes.
What was the most challenging though? Like as far as cultural transition, to be honest, I feel like Spain is probably fun and like, I mean, I can transition into Spain with drinking wine for 3 hours for lunch. Like I feel like it's not the end of the world for me to transition into that type of lifestyle. So as far as like the toughest kind of like transition culturally, what was that in your experience for you?
I would say it was Russia. It was
Wow.
definitely Russia.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. What happened there?
Well, it was tough because I couldn't easily integrate into the culture. So,
Well, let's start with like what did you have to do in Russia? Like
well,
why did you
I
even go there? Like no one goes there usually.
my company wanted to open up a new sales subsidiary, a sales and marketing subsidiary, and they wanted to have somebody who had already experienced that. So they asked me to go there, and I was like, sure, why not? Another country on my list. So my husband came with me.
And that was if you don't mind me asking, what year was that? Just
It was 2009.
because with Russia we have to like kind of
Yes,
like have the pockets of like which like time
yeah,
frame we're talking because it's always like there's something happening.
yes,
Okay, so 2009. Okay, okay.
2009. And I mean, the people are survivors. I feel like every single generation has gone through war, and that makes them tough and that makes them in a survival mode. And you realize that. And when you come as a outsider into their countries, I always felt I don't belong. I always felt they don't want me there. They were always mistrusting me in a way. They didn't want to talk to us. It was also hard because a lot of people don't speak German or English. And I really tried to learn Russian, but it was so hard. Yeah, so that was definitely for me the hardest part, the toughest culture to really adapt and integrate myself.
I noticed that when I was working for the United Nations in Kazakhstan, where like Europeans would come for like to be stationed there, or like people from Australia, it's it's really tough for them to fit in, just like even visually type of thing. Like, and we're talking like even like Kazakhstan, okay, like, but even like there's a visual difference between people, and it's kind of like weird, like everyone feels it. And just like as far as interest goes and everything, like there's definitely like it has to be, because I heard that before, like the Europeans in like the Eurasian continent, like it's really hard to kind of like find that common language, regardless whether you speak the language or not. Obviously, like English always helps, but there's definitely like it needs to be like some time of adjustments, because I feel like with well, I'm not sure with Europeans, but for Americans, for example, it's very hard. It's very easy to become friends, and I say friends in quotations, but like that, because you kind of have like a surface level friend and a deeper friend, like, but you can easily kind of have that communication that is friendly. And like with Eastern Europeans and people in Eurasia, Kazakhs, and all of that, it's just like you have to, I don't know, there has to be some sort of a time spent together. It's definitely like a culture of where trust needs to be earned, and it's not like given to you right away. So I can totally see how it's like tough.
Yeah, and I would even include Germany to a certain extent to it, because you don't make easy friends with a German neither. But once you have earned this trust, the friendship lasts forever. And that's a really, really nice thing.
So allow me to ask you, like, you this time around to Russia, you came with your husband. And so like how was that for you to just I don't know, was that different for you, like just to travel with your family, especially to Russia? And like maybe for me, Russia is not as intimidating just because, we were all part of Soviet Union, so I feel that culture a little bit. But like for someone from the outside, it's still like so foreign, and a lot of let's be clear, like people are scared of Russians, and it's like always like so intimidating.
Yes.
What how was that for you? Like, did you feel that intimidation, or it was just like some people were weird at work and that's it?
I mean, in general, going to another country and live there, it is intimidating because even for me, you get cold feet. You're like, oh God, oh my God, what am I doing? Even coming to Canada, it's like, why am I doing that? Because, you're thrown into a culture, into an environment you don't know. Even you can read everything about it, but you just don't know what will be around you. So, yes, it is totally stepping out of your comfort zone. Absolutely. But I'm telling you as well that stepping out of your comfort zone is when you grow. That's where the real growth is happening with you. And that's the reason why I always do it, because I know deep in my heart that it will give me a boost in my personal growth.
So, and I completely agree with that. But I'm also thinking like, no matter which country you're being deployed to, I feel like it's some sort of a deployment. They always send you to these countries to like fix some things. And, let's say it's sales and advertising or marketing. But like you always come there at the position from the position of the boss. You come there and you have to like tell people what to do. And that's like double pressure where it's like, well, I'm not from here. I'm actually not really familiar with your culture. But I'm here now, and I'm this, lady who comes and just tells you what to do. And now like you kind of have to like just say yes to it, or, because they have to, otherwise you will fire you or something. I don't know. It's just like, but it's like, some people will say like, well, that's fine, like you're the boss, I'll do it. But some people will say like, well, who is this lady? Like, why did she come from somewhere abroad and tells us what to do, and she doesn't even know us? Like, obviously you feel that, right, Sabine? Like, how do you deal with that? Like, it's because for me it would be tough. Like, I really strive for people to like me, and I really hate that about myself because I'm really trying to teach myself like I don't need to be liked by everyone. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
like that's what I really on my subconscious, like I really crave. How do you deal with that?
First of all, I don't go there with the thought I'm the boss. Like, I try to be as humble as possible because I want to earn, I know I have to earn their trust. Because without trust, you cannot work with them. So I need to come as a human being and not as a boss. I need to be their trusted colleague first. So I go in there, I'm listening, I'm spending time with them, I'm learning. So I'm almost like their trainee in the beginning. And I'm very curious about what they have done. I celebrate them for the fantastic projects they show me and the ideas which have been done. And with that, I gain their trust. And after that, then you can come with your ideas, and then you can come with the global strategies or demands. But before that, it's impossible, and you really need to be as humble and thankful as well that they are opening up for you.
Do you mind giving like an example of that humbling experience where you just come in and just like you're sort of, not telling people what to do, but you're taking your time and then at the same time you're kind of implementing something after the fact that you became friends with your colleagues in any country, I guess. But I wonder, like, I guess like the more fun, the better, I guess, as far as examples.
Well, it, it, there's one story which comes into my mind when you said humbling, and I really would like to
Sure.
tell this story. So when we moved back to Germany, by that time we already had a child. And in Germany, my son had a really hard time to integrate into the culture because we were living in Spain. He didn't know German very well. And as we said, the Germans are it's very hard to make friends. And since my son, kids, they can be very cruel in that way. They don't think as much in that way. So it took us about 1.5 years till the first kid invited him to a birthday party. 1.5 years. And we went to Brazil, and I was with my family. It was the first week where we kind of like a look and see trip, where we could select the house, where we could see where we are living. And we went as well with my family to my office. And Brazil, I mean, they love kids.
Hmm.
They love family. My kid was taken around. They played football with him. They gave him a puzzle to play. And the marketing manager came up to me and said to me, you know what? Your kid doesn't know anybody. My kid is the same age. I would like you to come to his birthday party tomorrow. And I didn't know what to say.
That
I
was like
just,
day one.
yeah, I mean, and I'm getting goosebumps just telling that to you. And it just showed me, even like being vulnerable and saying, "Hey, I'm not coming alone. I'm coming with my husband and my kid, and I don't have anybody to look after them. I'll just bring them with me." Which in Germany already you cannot do that. In general, in corporations, they're not even allowed because of security reasons to get into. And there you bring them in there, they're received and even invited to a birthday party where they don't even know the kid. It showed me just like, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful, because when you go there, you don't have any friends. And it was just so humbling to me, having had this experience.
I mean, and it's a great story, and it must be tough to be a parent, of a very, it's just like a child that you have to sort of consider when you go to different countries because you're sort of shaping his life through those experiences. And my personal opinion, those are actually really, really great experiences for a kid to have, just to see the world from the very early age. But for you, was that a huge dilemma? Like, because a lot of parents, they're like, well, we have a kid now, and
Yeah,
therefore we have to settle. But
yeah,
it sounds like it did not stop your family from, going and see the world.
yeah, and you're right. A lot of people stop their dreams when they have kids and family. Don't do that. If your passion is to go, go without even questioning it. Kids adapt, sometimes better, sometimes not as good. My kid always had some troubles to adapt, except in Canada by surprise. He adapted very well. And but it's at long term, as you said, it's the best gift you can give them.
That's I completely agree with that. And you mentioned Canada, and we'll get back to that. But how many countries did you work at throughout your career?
I lived in seven, but I worked with almost all of the countries. Like, obviously, there were some exceptions, like Haiti, Venezuela. I didn't work with because we closed down our subsidiaries. But there like 100. We had 160 subsidiaries, so I connected to all of them.
And as far as being physically present, so I guess you've been to like Germany, Spain, Russia, Brazil, USA. Did you come back to USA?
Yes, I went actually to New York to work as well for a publishing house.
And was that like a crazy experience? Because
Oh
New
yes,
York is a whole different level.
yes, it is. It is. It was totally different than Houston.
And so like out of these countries, like which one do you feel like if you had to like come back to and work, like you'd say like, okay, I'll choose this country.
I, that's a hard one because I love every single country for different reasons, and it's really hard for me to pick just one because
Very diplomatic.
yeah, I can't because every single country has its beauty in itself.
Absolutely. And when you go to different countries as a German national, but you always go to this like Brazil or Spain, like something like this very like a little like different. Obviously, you adopt that personality, like you kind of get immersed in that culture. And do you feel like at some point you have these moments where, you're kind of confused? Am I like German now? Am I Brazilian? Because let me tell you about myself. Like, I've lived in the United States for 9 years since I was like 17. And I adopted the American personality a lot. And because I liked it, it was kind of in me from the get-go. But like when I come back to Kazakhstan, people look at me weirdly because I'm sort of like it's a different vibe, and it's just like and then you sort of kind of have to adjust to that yourself, and maybe after a couple of months you're like, okay, I'm back into that more introverted state. How is it for you? Like, does it ever happen to you?
Oh yes, oh yes. And let me tell you another story what happened to me. So after we lived 12 years in Spain, I adapted to the openness, to the fun life, to the social life. And I was transferred to the headquarter to Germany again. So Germany, as we said, very closed in, more introverted, very quiet, not as loud. And very in the beginning, we were sitting in the canteen. It's about 1,000 people in the canteen eating. And the Mexican general manager visited Germany, came into the canteen, and I worked for him as well for half a year. So he came into the canteen. I was sitting on the way other back of the canteen. He saw me, I saw him. I stand up, screamed his name. He screamed my name as loud as he could. We run to each other, and in the middle of the canteen, we hugged each other, kissed each other, and we were so happy to see each other. And we talked very, very loud. And in this instant of kissing him right and left, I looked around me, and there was no voice. I mean, there was everybody kind of like dropped their fork and knife
Just
and
stared
was
at you.
shocked by, by this by this situation because Germans don't do that. You have an etiquette. You say hello with a distance. You don't scream, and we just did everything wrong in the norms of the Germans. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, please, please, please take me away from this scene. And I and the fun, now I laugh about it, but it was actually not fun. And one of the reviews with one of my colleagues, 2 years later, she had the trust to tell me, I cannot take you serious anymore because of that scene. And
Hmm.
that's how important culture is. That's why we really need to understand cultures and have this in our mindset when we go, because this can be a gain or an absolutely fail. And this scene was, in the eyes of the Germans, an absolute fail.
Very judgmental people.
Yeah, it was hard at that time. I mean, that was a feedback, what we said before. And like, I was shocked. I was shocked, and I was like, oh my goodness. You know, and that was her story, and my story. I never saw that. I knew it was not right, and I knew I shouldn't have done it, but the passion just got over me, and
Hey, that's beautiful. Don't let it sit in you. Give it out.
but here I am. I'm still alive, and I still enjoy life.
Exactly, exactly. And let this be a lesson to everybody, just to let your passion out. And don't try to close it down. But Sabine, I want to make sure we have some tips, right, for people who listen to us. Um, and you just gave us this background on all the, cultural knowledge and experience that you've gained through all your careers. But as far as, like, for example, managing people, like how do you lead a team like with different cultural backgrounds, right? Because yes, there's just you usually like from Germany into some other countries, but most likely there's other people from different cultures as well in the corporation. And like, how do you deal with that? Because we just discussed this awkward moment, but like imagine like multiply it by 10 because everyone has an awkward moment experience.
Yeah, it's important that you know different cultures, and it's important that you respect it as well, and that you kind of like don't have a judgment about it, because and I would even say, with even in a surrounding in which we are living, this is it always should be like that, but it is amplified with international or multicultural team. So you really need to be humble, need to listen in very carefully, need to communicate very clearly, and need to respect others and other views, and not be judgmental about it. I'll give you a good example. For example, when I moved to Brazil, I worked a lot with the Latin American countries, and they're wonderful people, and they're very down to earth, and they're really working hard, and they're very motivated by working. However, the status of education is not the same as we in Europe, for example, have have experienced. So they don't go through such a higher level of education. So when I came to Latin America, I had to accept that they're learning by doing.
Hmm.
They don't come out of a university and know already how to write an essay or a thesis, or how to analyze and compartmentalize it, as much as we have learned, or I have learned in Germany. So they're learning by doing, and once you show them how you want it to be done, they're fast and they're quick to adapt. But we cannot assume that the way you learned it in your culture, they will follow it,
Hmm.
because it won't.
Yeah, and it's I mean with the European culture, that part of thing where school gives you a lot of practice while you're at school. Like that's what I heard a lot. Like even in the United States, they don't get that as much. Like when you get out of high school, for example, in the United States, a lot of people complain that, oh, like we actually don't know a lot of things. But that's absolutely true. Like like the practicality of it and explaining certain things to your coworkers and to employees to make sure that you have like a step-by-step guides, for example. That's that's definitely something that's beneficial for every culture, no matter where you're from, just to make sure that your communication is kind of like very transparent, I would say. My problem when I try to like give people tasks is that I oftentimes assume that they know what I'm thinking. And that's like that's like I shouldn't do that at all. I should because that's stupid. Like of course they don't know what you're thinking. So like how would they guess? So you have to really like make sure you communicate openly about, what needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, when I normally communicate and it's important for me that they understand, I ask him to repeat it. And I ask them to tell me what their tasks are to make sure they have really understood it. Because most of the time we think we said it clearly and then
Hmm.
we realize it's not.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm learning too that it's a humbling process that this is your fault that they don't understand you. It's not their fault. Like you are as a communicator have to make sure that they understand because I'm
Yeah.
stressing afterwards, but then there's
Yes.
no one else to blame. It's you have to just make sure you get your point across clearly.
Yes, yes, and there's another point that with the different cultures, there are cultures they cannot say no. So
Mm,
if you say them, did you understand it? Yes.
hmm.
Is it clear to you? Yes. In some countries, they cannot say no because they lose their face, or they cannot say no because they are trained. This is my boss. You cannot contradict the boss.
That's true.
You have to read in between the lines.
That's so true. That's so true. And that's where the cultural intelligence comes handy, because what you just explained with like not saying no, it makes sense for a lot of cultures to just not contradict your boss and just say yes so that you can please your boss and just like move on and figure it out later, hopefully, or hopefully no one else will ever know anything that you that you don't know what you're doing. But like in the world that feels so increasingly divided, how do you manage like that within the companies? Because there's always like stuff comes up, politics, culture, all of
Yes,
that.
yes, yes. I feel like that the media is amplifying a picture of the world which is divided. And they want us believe so, and they want to emphasize it. But the truth is, every time I'm traveling and working in the different countries, individuals are so welcoming and so nice and so embracing and helping each other that I don't see on the ground the division. And I don't want to say it's not existing. Of course, it exists. Even in Germany, we have those problems. However, if you spread happiness, love, good vibes, it comes back to you always. And I want to make friends. I want to make a good living with good colleagues. So I'm the first one who has to acknowledge to be nice, to be humbling to others. And if you walk through the world in this state of mind, you will find people who have the same state of mind. And in my little world, that's what keeps me sane as well, because yes, there is a lot of noise out there, but if you shut off the noise and listen to yourself and go with an open heart out in the world, you will find wonderful, wonderful people.
That is so beautiful and nicely put, and I completely agree with that. A lot of that negativity is being amplified a lot right now in the age of information.
Yes.
And when it gets down to it, like a lot of people just, they have basic desires, needs, to take care of their family, just to be happy, to make sure that, everyone's healthy, and that's pretty much what drives everyone. But everything else is it's just so much noise.
I agree. I agree.
So Sabina, we're both Canadians. You're in Canada, I'm in Canada. What's Canada is like your latest experiment, I would say, or I don't know how to call it, like the destination of the of the season. What it's like for you? How was it like for you to come to Canada?
Wow, it was tough because it was the first time that I didn't go with a company. Because if you go with a company and they send you, everything is done for you. You know, they look out for you. They look out for your papers, that you have a phone, a house, a car, a credit card, and everything is fine. So you're ready to roll and work. And this was not the case in Canada. We personally decided to move to Canada because my husband is Canadian. And I really wanted as well my son to see the other side of his DNA and his culture. So that's the reason why we decided to move on to Canada. And yeah, I naively thought everything would go on as it was before in my life. And I must say, now I really understand what it means to be an immigrant and starting a new life without any help of a company. Because a lot of immigrants come here to have a better life somewhere because the life they have somewhere else doesn't give them the possibility to even survive. So we came here, I was not even having a working permit, and just to wait 5, or I think it was 7 months to get a working permit, and you
Right.
cannot get money. I didn't had a permanent residence, so I was not living here. So every time I crossed the border, I was asked, and I didn't had a home because I was not living in Brazil anymore neither. So I was every time questioned about it. Where do you live? Where is your residence? But I didn't had a residence. So I had this limbo status, which was not comfortable at all. And also, you're as a newcomer, you're not getting a credit card, for example, because you don't have a credit score.
Hmm.
Everything what you've done before is erased. You start from scratch again. I was not eligible, for example, to get a phone only because my husband was a Canadian and he authorized it for me,
That's crazy.
able to get a phone. So it's very humbling process when you come from an executive position and you start all over as a little baby,
Right. Beginning of the
walking.
journey, yeah.
So that was, yeah, I mean, a very, very, very good experience for me. And every immigrant deserves the utmost respect for their resilience to go to another country because they're definitely heroes in my eyes.
100%. And a lot of immigrants right now in Canada are going through the same thing. That limbo state that you mentioned, a lot of people are going through the same thing right now, trying to figure out what's the next step. And I bet a lot of people will, relate to that experience. Um, but I guess more than a year later, you're now in Canada. How's that working out for you? Like, do you have any regrets? Are you happy here? What's what's the situation?
Well, I have my working permit. I have
There's
my
that. Okay.
papers. I have a phone. I have a credit card. And honestly, I celebrated every single step of that because it was kind of like a gain, a little gain
Yeah.
to recover my life again. And yes, I'm doing well. I started my own consulting company, helping other companies um, thrive in a multicultural international environment. And yes, I'm happy here. I love it, except the winter, I have to be honest.
Oh, tell me about it. I am also not a fan of the winters here. I'm starting to, especially this past winter was a little rough for me. It's like it's still going on sometimes. Like it's barely getting warm right now. And it's already April 20th almost. Um, you mentioned your own business, and I wanted to say that I really enjoy your content strategy on LinkedIn. You provide a lot of wisdom through your LinkedIn content, through your LinkedIn videos and posts. And I just wanted to kind of maybe dive in a little bit deeper into that. And you've also mentioned that you've having like a creative outlet and you're creating something. So I want to ask you about that. But first, I just want to ask about that experience with this contrast with you have now your own business and now you're responsible for everything. including marketing and including biz dev and sales. But again, like on LinkedIn, it's just like you're just basically shining, and I just wanted to see how's that experience from the from the inside perspective.
And again, it was very, very humbling because in the corporation, a lot of things are done for you. You know, you have a salesperson, you have a marketing team. I had somebody to go to with my IT problems. I had a lawyer, you know, and suddenly when you start your own business, it sounds fantastic to be the CEO and your own boss, but suddenly you're in charge of everything and you're doing everything. So that really kind of like it is tough, and it's tough as well. And I would say in the Canadian environment, starting your own business, I always say, for me, it is the toughest ground to sell and to offer your services, because Canadians are very friendly, but they're also very reserved, and they're not the biggest risk takers. We talked about the United States, and for me, the biggest difference in between the United States and Canada is the United States, they are the go-getters, they are the risk takers. They say yes to you tomorrow if they like it. Not Canada. Canada is much more reserved. They need to get to know you. You have one interview after another. They need to see proof. So it's taking much longer to work with them and to convince them of new ideas than it is somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm noticing that a lot with the contrast with the United States and Canada, and it's there's like good things to that and bad things to that. Bad things is just sometimes you just want to like go ahead and you just have to wait. But good things is just like sometimes it's more relaxed and you feel less
Yeah.
anxious. You know what I mean? So it's always like a balance. But it's so true what you're saying. It's like you're responsible for everything, and if you're not doing this, then you're on your own. It's no one to blame. But it's amazing, and like I love looking at your progress, and I know like the company is doing extremely well right now, so I'm very happy for you. But I want to also bring up this point where we were, I think, at one of the networking events, and you're sort of in between told me like, oh yeah, I'm actually working on a book. And I thought that was so amazing, and I wanted you to maybe tell me more about the book that you're writing right now.
Yes, yes. I had this idea. It actually, the idea came to me in Russia, because Russia was so different to my own culture, and I had so many deep stories and mind-blowing experiences that I said, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. The world needs to know different cultures and how they can adapt and how they can learn from them and how they actually can be a better person with it. And this was 15 years ago, and it kept in my mind, and it was never the right time. And then I met a person 3 years ago, and he also wanted to write a book. And we said, okay, next 5 years, we are writing the book, and we are promising each other that the book will be out in the next 5 years. So 3 years have gone. So I said to myself, this year it has to be done. So I started with my New Year's resolution in January, saying this is the year. I started with two other people who also want to write a book to hold ourselves accountable. And I signed myself up for a book club, writing a book, to be a writer. And yes, I'm in the middle of it. It took me a long time to get to the point to write it, but I'm in the middle of it and I really enjoy it. And it is about, it's nonfiction, even though it's a lot of my background and my experiences. And it's about a woman which life is a disaster, and she escapes to a remote island, immerses herself and sees a completely different culture and loves it, adores it, comes back to her disaster life and slowly adapts and changes through the experiences she had on the island.
Wow. That's such a beautiful beginning of the story, or like a premise, I would say, that I think it's especially giving that your experience. I can't wait to read that book. I'll be honest with you. And I can't wait for you to officially publish it so that I can buy several copies and send it to my friends as well. Do you have approximate date when you think you can maybe finish it and publish it to the world? Maybe
Oh,
this year, next year,
no, it has to be this year. I
this year. Okay.
promise it will be this year. I don't know when exactly, but I promise you it will be this year.
That's fantastic. Sabina, I know you have to go soon, but I wanted to ask you one more question. You know, many people are dreaming of going abroad and doing what you do. And I was just wondering, what is the one advice that you would give to these people who has this dream, who have this dream?
Go for it. Go for it. If it is your deepest dream, don't be afraid. It's so wonderful, and every single person who did the step will not regret it, even though it will be hard, even though it will be tough sometimes. You will grow, you will see beauty, you will see gratitude. Just do it. Step out of your comfort zone and do it, because you will otherwise regret that you have not done and fulfilled your dream you always wanted to do. So just go for it.
Amazing, amazing. Sabine, thank you so much. How can people reach out to you? How can they find more information about you, if you don't mind giving my listeners a little bit of information on the contact? And I'll send some links in the description of the podcast as well about you.
Yes, I'm very open, as you said. LinkedIn is my channel. If anybody wants to connect, feel free. It's Sabine MacDonald, very easy. And I'm sure you put the contact details as
Yes.
well in your podcast. So feel free to connect. I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Sabine MacDonald, thank you so much for being a guest on Azizi Podcast. I really appreciate your time, and I hope we can talk again once your book is out. We should absolutely meet again and talk about it on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.